Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode recap for Witch Hat Atelier. This week it is episode 11. We have 2 more episodes until the end of the season, and until I have to figure out what the next series I'm going to do this for is, which I'm sure there's a lot of stuff airing next season, and I'll just pick something that I think I really vibe with, and I'll start doing it from the beginning, I hope. But yeah, I'm going to be sad that this is approaching the end for now until we get like another season, hopefully, because there's rumblings that might be in production and that might be happening, so that's good. But yeah, we're gonna get right into this because this episode was pretty slow. A lot of like building into what'll happen in the last 2 episodes, and a lot of like setup type stuff, and not too many deviations from the manga either. So it was really solid as an episode. But without further ado, let's get right into it and start talking about it. Okay, so the episode opens up with Agat kind of like flying next to some scale wolves, just like running against each other and bumping each other so that they knock their scales off. She's kind of remarking that it is mating season for them, and that in order to be able to care for their young and like have their offspring, they have to knock these scales off of each other and basically be vulnerable because the scales serve as protection. And she's just kind of like, yeah, you could be so much stronger if like you just chose not to mate, basically choosing like not to like open yourself up to like others, essentially. And then she kind of also, in the same vein, kind of realizes that she's thinking about how she's treated Coco, and that Coco is actually not much different than her and the other girls. And if Coco can learn magic the way she has been, then what makes her any different from any of them? And this is a really big step for her because, again, Coco was the antithesis of everything Agat was taught to believe, and she was very resistant to opening up to her like at all in the first place. But at this point, she is very much opening up to Coco a lot, and is very, very like almost you can almost tell she's almost a little protective of her, especially when Coco got sick and the sigh of relief, and all that jazz. So like she definitely is starting to like care about Coco a little bit more, and I think that's what this first thing kind of like always shows that, between the manga and the anime. But we go back to the atelier, and Coco is basically practicing spells with Keyfree, and the spell she's practicing comes out great. It works perfectly. She's doing a great job. And he mentions that, yeah, your spells have gotten like a lot more reliable like recently. You're really putting in the work. But she kind of mentions that she's like, oh yeah, but like I can only draw certain spells. Like I can only fall back on a few that I know I can draw confidently. To which Keyfree kind of like, which at the same time, by the way, Brush Buddy is trying to get under Keyfree's cloak, which is very cute, but also like if that's it's a little terrifying. I'm not gonna lie, a little sad. um, but essentially, Keyfree says that the spells she's able to draw, like really well, are her specialty. Like the really simple things that people can draw really easily and really quickly and like repeat a lot are things that Coco is good at. And this makes Coco excited because Coco, first of all, was like, oh my god, I can do magic great. But now she has a specialty. And she's like, whoa, like a specialty? That's so cool. And Kiefer's like, yeah, like you do a really great job drawing straight lines. And like, that's kind of like, you remember when I met you, that's how like I saw you drawing straight lines. And like a lot of her spells can like fall back on like having straight lines that like work really well. And which is funny because she's like, oh my god, I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to start drawing straight lines forever. And it's kind of like, whoa, hold your horses, girl. Kiefer's like, all right, no, because you're gonna like get good at your specialty regardless. That's just how it is. But like, you need to like read and look through the other spells, kind of, to actually be able to like learn other things, so that you can learn other specialties and other abilities, and expand your horizons essentially. And so like, he basically drops a bunch of books in front of her, and she's like, oh my god. But she starts looking through them, and like, now that she has a better understanding of how magic works and like the world works, she's looking at these seals and like these spells, and she's like, oh my god, like I can really appreciate how complex these are and how much effort went into creating these these spells essentially. Whereas before, magic was just like a really cool kind of thing to her that just kind of existed. Now she's like, there's a lot of work behind it, to like make it work the way that it does. And she basically is calling it like amazing and like awesome and incredible repeatedly, much to the annoyance of Risha, who's in the same exact room, is like, oh my god, like please get a different word for describing things. But Coco, offers her like, oh my god, do you want to like come look at these like seals? This is really cool. But Risha's not big on that. She's like, no, I don't want to look at that. I want to just draw what I want to draw. I don't want to read all that. Kiefer's like, if you don't like actually read anything, you won't actually be able to like, learn and advance and like, get further ahead. He's trying to explain this to her, but this really frustrates her, and she is in the process of drawing a circle to complete her spell, and she overdraws it, and the thing just kind of goes a little haywire, and there's crystal, I'm assuming, all over the desk basically, and Kiefer has to run over to her to check on her. But then she snatches her hand away and just kind of like runs off because she's kind of like just really upset about what Kiefer was saying and about him in her eyes, trying to force her to draw things that she doesn't want to draw. And so, Coco follows after her. Is like, wait, come back. And Ollie, who's been on the couch this entire time, napping, wakes up and is like, yeah, like not engaging with the lessons at all. Kind of like leaves you with nowhere to go, but also like no way to get anywhere really, because if you're drawing the same thing over and over again, you can't grow, you can't actually advance and do anything. But obviously, Reach has her own reasons for this, like her own baggage for doing this. But even still, like it is going to hamper her going forward. Like that makes it very hard for her to like actually be an accomplished witch. Uh, and as Coco's kind of like going to find her, she like is like, where could this girl possibly be? Because she goes into her room, she's not there, and we get a really great. The animators are doing an amazing job with Brush Buddy. I mean, again, he's just flopping around on the floor to get Coco's attention, and Coco's like, oh my god, what is it? And do you know where she is? Brush Buddy's like, yeah, like nods and like goes into like this magic pot essentially, and Coco's like, where are you going? Before Brush Buddy vanishes into the pot, and then Coco also goes in there and finds out this is actually essentially reaches a secret lair. Like falls into like this mossy kind of like foresty kind of like tunnel area, and it's kind of surprised because she's like, whoa, this is like wild. Like I didn't think this was gonna be here. And she kind of crawls through, and then she finds Reach kind of like sitting at the end of it, like under all these like crystal ornaments that are essentially her original spell that she's created. That she really, really likes drawing. And Coco is just so excited about it. She literally bent over backwards looking at the ceiling at these things, because every magic thing is cool to Coco. That's just how it works. And Riche sees this, and I think really for the first time is able to see someone else, because I'm gonna get to that in a second. Someone else who actually appreciates her spell that she created and like is really captivated by it. And she's like, you can take one if you want. Like I got plenty, so you can take one. Tries to play it off really cool, but I saw that look you made on your face. You were actually very happy about it. And that makes Coco even more happy. She's like, I can take one. Wow. Coco asks why she doesn't want to look at the spell books. Like, why is she like resistant to it? Because for Coco, who, however much time ago, had no knowledge of magic whatsoever, this is really cool. Like she feels like she's like learning so much and that she's experiencing so much. But for Riche, it feels like people are trying to really take her individuality and force her to do things that she doesn't want to do, because she's like, if I read this thing, if I sit down to read it, people are going to force me to practice and draw what's in it, and that will take away my individuality. And quite frankly, if I learn all these spells, it will like contaminate my own kind of individuality and the way I like to draw, and that will make my spells not my own anymore. So she's just not really feeling it at all. Meanwhile, upstairs, kind of like Kiefer is kind of like talking about how stubborn she is and saying that her shield is essentially like her stubbornness acts as her shield, almost like a scale wolf's kind of like pelt at this point, because we know those are like hard and used to protect the scale wolf in times of danger. Which now here's the thing: experiencing this series over again, right? The first time I read through those lines, I don't think I like necessarily tied it together to where like the through line for this arc and how it ends as well. But now that I'm thinking about it again, now that I've read the chapter again, I've seen the episode a couple times or like make this video, I'm like, wow, like actually Shirahan chooses her words so carefully and chooses what she's like trying to like get through so carefully, and a lot of this will come back later in terms of her stubbornness, the scales, acting as a shield. It's really actually it's actually a very beautiful moment. It won't happen until next season, obviously, but and it's one of my favorite panels, quite frankly. But yeah, I'm excited to see that now. Like now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, that was actually a very intentional choice of words, and I really love that. But essentially, Origio is kind of just like, yeah, but you can't like boil it down that way. Like people are not as simple as magic, unfortunately. And he gives Kiefer some like snug stones, essentially like help him sleep and help the girl sleep, basically. And he says like, yeah, just like use it and help yourself sleep. Set a good example. You are their teacher, so do all that. And Kiefer is like, wow, your magic is really kind. And Origio is just kind of like, no, this is just me testing it. Like I need to be able to see if it works, and then we can make a ton of money off of it. And it's just like, okay, yeah, sure. Anyone who's read further and knows further than this knows that man is incredibly kind. He just likes to play it off, especially in his middle age. I don't know how old he is actually. He might be in his 30s or something. But yeah, I mean, and then as that's happening, as Origio kind of like leaves the room, a message comes through that confirms the date of Agat's test, which is 3 days from when the message is received. She arrives home. Kiefer telling her this, and she's like, oh my god, when are we leaving? Can we go? And essentially everyone packs up to leave. Kiefer is bringing everyone along as well. And we get kind of like a Riche flashback kind of dream where she's in that same kind of like mossy, foresty space, playing with like her crystal magic by herself. Then we see her brother. First look at her brother, really. And he's like, oh, what do you got there? She crunches it up, throws it, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. But he compliments it and says it's like really lovely, really cool. And he says that the thing he loves about her magic is that she expresses herself through it. And he tells her like never lose who you are, like always stay true to yourself, be true to yourself. And he says this essentially as he leaves and reaches his dream to become an apprentice to another witch, much to her like sadness, as you can hear her like breaking her, you can hear her voice essentially breaking as like this dream is ending, as this is happening. And she kind of like wakes up in the carriage with the other girls sleeping, which by the way, like they are knocked out. But also at this point there is a cut panel. Nothing too major. It's just kind of like Riche went outside the carriage because she was the first one awake, and she saw that Kiefer's up on a hill feeding like these bird creatures essentially. And he tells her like, oh, like sun's coming up. Sun is basically coming up, so like go wake the others, so that they can get ready. So like that one, I mean, I again, it's not really a big panel to cut. I don't think it would have been cool to see, because I mean, it would have been a Kiefer aura farming moment, low key. But he doesn't get those in the anime, I guess, or at all, really. I mean, the man constantly just gets bullied out of aura farming. But we fast forward just maybe a few minutes, hours later, and Agat's cursing the Snugstone because she's like, oh my god, this stupid thing made me sleep, and I was gonna study even more before the test, and I slept. I just slept through it, and she's so frustrated, and everyone's like, oh yeah, and like there's like a little like bubble of Arugio kind of going like, yeah, because that means it's effective. If Agat was not able to wake up early to study for something because of the magic you created, I would say it's pretty effective. But Kiefer's like, don't worry about passing the test, don't worry about any of that, like just worry about like taking it and like finding out where your weaknesses are. And Agat, being my goat, being the girl she is just kind of like, no, this is gonna be the only time I take this test because I'm not gonna fail. Like that's like on House Arclam, I'm not gonna fail this test. And Kiefer's like, all right, yeah, sure. And at this point, as this is happening, she's being really confident. Another witch, Kokoro, and his apprentice, my goat Uni, shows up. And he's essentially just I hate Kokoro so much. I hate him because of the way he treats Uni, because Uni is a shy boy, but unfortunately he messes up because of his shyness and because of a lot of he's just very nervous all the time. And he basically just Kokoro's slandering him, being like, oh my god, my apprentice is worthless. I would gladly trade this child for Agat if possible. And Kifri's like, that's kind of crazy. You can't just talk about trading people. Like these apprentices are people, not like possessions you trade. And then Kokoro's like, oh, that's really a shame, because I mean, at least you can fix something that's a possession. And I'm like, I remember hating him a lot, but seeing him again, I'm like, I hate you so much. Like, you suck, dude. Like, you're actually awful. But Uni, with his self-esteem issues, is like, yeah, no, it's okay. Like, I'm a poor apprentice, and I'm sorry for like embarrassing you, master. I'm like, oh, don't apologize, my boy. Like, you're okay. Like, you're okay. I got you. You're fine. And then Elira arrives because she's the proctor of the test and is disguised as a giant brush buddy, which is very amusing to Coco. She's like, whoa, I didn't know they came in this size. Like, this is actually insane. But no, it's just Elira, who, so fine, chef's kiss. But she's like, yeah, so I'm here to administer the second test. She explains that the second test is essentially about guarding your charge, essentially, you're like the thing you're responsible for throughout the Serpentback Cave, and also not letting them know that you're drawing magic throughout this. So you have to like use magic to protect them without like cluing them in that you're protecting magic. And I got kind of like, oh, and by the way, if you have to stay with them the entire time. So if you reach the end of that cave without them, you fail. If it reaches the end without you, you fail. And Agat's like, okay, but like, isn't there like a risk of exposure if we're drawing and we like have to hide it, and like how does that work? And Elira's like, actually, we're like escorting these merfins who are like these like penguin, these four-legged like rock penguin. I guess not rock penguin. They're cute. That's all I gotta say about them. They're adorable creatures. That essentially migrate through the cave with their young like once a year, which is why this test is only once a year. And she kind of like is like, okay, yeah, we're gonna be escorting the Murphins, and she gives them like these kind of like cloaks, that the cloak she was wearing that conceals you and disguises you as a nearby animal or creature, to basically complete this mission. Um, and it's really funny because like the cloaks make everyone look like the Murphins, but like with their like little witch hats on. Um, and yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So she's giving out like a Murphin essentially to each of the test takers. So she gives one to Uni, she gives one to Aga, and then she gives one to Reach. And Reach is like, there's a mistake here. I'm not taking this test. And then Kiefer's like, actually, you are. Sorry. And the look on Reach's face is one of betrayal and anger. And she's just so upset. She's like, what? Because, like, the whole thing, and we'll get into Reach's backstory later, but the whole thing is that, like, she came to Kiefer under the promise that she would be able to draw what she wants and essentially be able to be free and not be forced to do things she doesn't want to do. And here's this man forcing her to do something she does not want to do. And Kiefer says, like, yeah, I understand that, like, that's very important, but like, you can't grow otherwise. And I, like, I am, like, he's her teacher, right? So he has to make sure that she's like growing into like an upstanding witch, basically. And he's like, listen, you need to take this test because the things that you learn here will help you live your life to like the fullest and like to your fullest ability. And like, I need you to like trust me just this one time. Like, please just trust me. And she looks at him. She's like, fine. Like, I'm gonna trust you. But if I don't like this, I'm never doing it again. And if it makes me feel like I'm not being myself, or it makes me stop being myself, I will never trust you again. So she's just very frustrated, very pissed off about this. But she's like, fine, I will give it a chance, just because like you asked me to trust you. And of course, again, here's the other thing. Kokoro cannot keep his mouth shut. This man is like, yeah, it's fools like those that make being a master so hard. And Kifri basically tells him to shut the hell up by going like, what'd you say? And he's like, it gets all stuttery, and he's like, actually, I'm gonna go back to the Great Hall. So he like takes off to fly away, and Elaborate and Kiefer are like, bro, your apprentice is here. Like, where are you going? And and he's like, yeah, no, like you all got it. It's fine. It's okay. And he just flies off, and they're just like, I cannot believe an individual like this exists. Like he again, scumbag, terrible individual. I hate him. But yeah, he just flies off, leaves Uni at home, leaves Uni at the test site by himself to go through this test, which is just so irresponsible. And he's just so, and it's like, yeah, Uni has failed twice before, but you're his master. You're responsible for this. You have to be here for this, or you should at least. But essentially, the group enters the Serpentback Cave, and the test begins at the end of the episode. Much to I got surprised, because like this is like the result of a labyrinth spell or something of that order that was cast a very long time ago. So the spell essentially contorted a road so that in the cave it's like, yeah, like the road is like, normal and flat sometimes the road is on the ceiling, sometimes it's on the wall. So they're like, oh, we have to like use magic to get through this like all the way. So yeah, Larry's like, yeah, how are y'all gonna solve this problem? And Kiefer kind of like says he's gonna like give Tetsuya and Coco a history lesson about like the cave, because obviously like Coco is kind of like naive to this whole thing as well, like how this cave might have come to be. But yeah, that's kind of like where the episode ends off. So it was a lot of setup this episode. Again, very faithful to chapters, I believe. Yeah, chapters 18 and 19, which at this point I know that this will be ending in chapter 23. There's no doubt that this will end in chapter 23, because that is the end of volume 4, and it is an insane cliffhanger to end off on. So that is when the first season is going to end. Like, I am willing to like bet on that. And what a crazy ending that's going to be. That's going to be insane. So I can't wait to see that. But yeah, very solid episode, very solid setup. Basically, essentially 1-to-1 with the manga. So I'm very pleased with that. But yeah, another really solid episode of Witch Hat Atelier this week. Okay, so that concludes the recap for episode 11 of Witch Hat Atelier. Like I said, 2 more episodes left until the end of the season. I haven't decided if I want to like do a final review after the episode 13 recap, or just lump my final thoughts into the episode 13 recap. Honestly, that probably makes more sense to do that, so I have less to do and I have less videos to make. So I'll be doing that. Maybe we'll see. Maybe I just made the decision right here. There is another video coming out that is not Witch Hat Today related, like I promised, but I have to edit that, so we'll see. It'll come out after this one though, for sure. But yeah, in the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.